Hi, you're listening to LiveVegan. This is Trish Roberts. I wanted to share with you an essay by Angel Flynn and Dan Kadahi. It's called Single Issue Campaigns, Pruning Exploitation. Quote, "There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root, and it may be that he who bestows the largest amount of time and money on the needy is doing the most by his mode of life to produce that misery which he strives in vain to relieve." That quote's by Henry David Thoreau. For many activists confronting widespread animal exploitation and related cruelty, from food to clothing to experimentation and entertainment, it can sometimes appear as though there are so many issues to focus attention on that the situation becomes overwhelming. It's helpful then to consider the analogy of a tree. The animal exploitation tree can be divided into several sections, including the roots, trunks, and branches. The roots of the tree, mostly hidden underground, represent our society's underlying speciesism, the cultural prejudice against all animals, in brackets other than humans, that makes it possible for us to ignore their basic needs in favor of our own trivial desires. Speciesism, like racism, sexism, and other oppressive cultural prejudices, ignores morally relevant characteristics, in brackets, such as fundamental interests of the oppressed or exploited, end brackets, in favor of morally relevant characteristics, in brackets, such as membership of a species, race, sex, and so on, end brackets. When we eliminate speciesism, we respect the interests of individual members of other species sufficiently to take those interests into account with our own and everyone else's. The behavioral result of such respect is veganism, avoiding animal products and uses in our lives as much as is reasonably possible. The base of the tree trunk, located just above the surface of the soil and the foundation for the rest of the tree's growth, represents the property status of animals, the legal structure which makes it socially legitimate for us to treat other sentient beings as economic commodities. In brackets, this legal status effectively keeps welfare reforms limited to those that optimize the economic efficiency of a socially accepted use, regardless of how cruel certain practices are, end brackets. The lower trunk of the tree, where the largest branches begin, represents our uses of animals for food, as the food industry accounts for the vast majority of all animal exploitation. Growing out of this section of the trunk are the tree's most substantial limbs, those that represent the production of dairy, eggs, and meat, including fish, each of which leads to many smaller branches representing the specific rights violations associated with these industries, such as intensive confinement and the horrific physical mutilations that occur in all three. Other smaller branches that originate in the, quote, food section, end quote, of the tree represent less common practices, such as the force feeding of geese to produce foie gras. As we travel further up the tree, past the most sizable branches of the food industry, the medium-sized branches represent the major industries of animal use, experimentation, clothing, and entertainment. Growing out of these branches are many smaller ones. For instance, the limb that represents animal-based clothing branches off into fur production, in brackets, which branches off again into seal clubbing, fur farming, wild trapping, etc., end brackets. The entertainment industry branches off into, in brackets, amongst many other issues, end brackets, sport hunting, which branches off again into canned hunting and hunting of endangered animals. Another offshoot from the parent limb of entertainment is the use of animals in circuses, branching off into the use of bull hooks on elephants. At the very edges of the animal exploitation tree, there exists a layer of, quote, dead, end quote, or, quote, dying, end quote, branches, which represent specific practices that are not economically optimal for industry to continue. These practices include keeping sows in gestation crates and killing chickens by electrocution, in brackets, as opposed to controlled atmosphere killing, which is celebrated by industry and advocates alike as being much more economically efficient, end brackets. Since the practices associated with animal exploitation exist solely to fulfill demand, consumers and users are the lifeblood of every aspect of the tree. Creating demand for these products and services can be compared to giving the tree water and fertilizer. Reducing demand with an increasing vegan population denies the tree of exploitation its essential nutrients, without which it will surely wither and eventually die. When we view the paradigm of animal exploitation in this manner, it becomes clear that the fatal problem with single-issue campaigns is that they focus on the outer periphery, while ignoring not only the trunk and main branches, but the roots themselves, which are continually working to deliver vital nutrients to every part of the tree. Single-issue campaigns are primarily focused on clipping either small or quote dead end quote branches off the tree, obviously making the tree healthier. Even when animal welfare groups attempt to cut off a medium-sized branch, such as seal clubbing or fur production, they find that the tree is easily healthy enough to continue thriving. If a part of the branch is cut or prevented from growing, in brackets pruning, as was the case with fur production in the 1990s, end brackets, the tree is still big and strong enough that such branches can actually come back with renewed strength, in brackets, as the case has been with fur production since the early 2000s, end brackets. Attempting to prune the tree not only fails to harm the tree in the long run, but actually helps it to thrive. In our global economy, another fatal problem of single-issue campaigns is that even if they were to succeed in cutting off small or medium-sized branches, new branches can grow in other areas to replace the branches that were cut. For example, if we eliminate horse slaughter in the United States, in brackets cutting a middle-sized branch, end brackets, industry will simply ship horses to Mexico and slaughter them there, in brackets new replacement branch, end brackets. As long as demand exists, supply and any profitable practices based on demand will shift to other jurisdictions as required. Because animals are property and economic commodities, we have a wide divergence of social acceptability regarding their treatment. On one hand, the law permits extreme cruelty for the most trivial of economic benefits, as long as the end use is socially acceptable. On the other hand, most people would be horrified to see a dog, especially their own dog, endure what animals raised for food or used in experiments endure. Single-issue campaigns reinforce these irrational dichotomies by singling out specific uses of animals as though they are worse than others. When we campaign to eliminate one branch of the tree, such as fur or seal clubbing industries, while ignoring other branches such as leather, egg, and dairy industries, we send a message to the public that certain forms of exploitation are worse than others. The tremendously popular, quote, "Say No to Fur," end quote, campaign is a classic example. This particular campaign sends the confusing and false message that fur is somehow worse than other animal-based fabric such as leather, which is just as brutal in its production, yet much more widely used. The animal exploitation tree exists solely because of consumers of animal products. Consumers and users are the lifeblood of every aspect of the tree. When we go vegan, we remove our contribution to the tree's health. When we inform others about why and how to become vegan, we help others eliminate their contribution to the tree's health. When we call attention to our society's speciesism, we dig up parts of the tree's root system and expose them to the light of day, eliminating one more source of nutrition for the branches. As more and more of us join in being vegan and encouraging and helping others to be vegan, the tree's health will steadily diminish, causing the outer branches to naturally die off, until eventually the entire tree, and with it the extreme cruelty it necessarily inflicts on the innocent, will no longer be able to survive. Rather than contributing to the efforts of thousands in, quote, hacking at the branches, end quote, of the tree, in brackets, while at the same time nourishing it by consuming and using animal products and services, end brackets, we ought to, quote, strike at the root, end quote, by embracing veganism and encouraging others to do the same. Thanks for listening, and if you're not vegan, please go vegan. It's easy, it's better for your health and for the planet, and most importantly, it's the morally right and just thing to do. Till next time, bye for now.